My Playful Wife, Episode 6, The Third Visit, written by Mia. He arrived on a Friday. By now I had developed a vocabulary for the days before Piyush's visits, a private language of signs and signals that I read the way you read weather. I could tell, a week out, by the particular quality of Saloni's attention in the mornings. The slight forward lean of her, the way she occupied the flat differently, more of it, more completely, as though the space itself needed preparation. She cleaned. Not the ordinary cleaning that happened on Sundays, but a deeper version, the kind that reaches into corners, that notices things you've stopped seeing. The flat would emerge from these sessions looking the same to most eyes, but subtly renewed, the surfaces carrying the evidence of being attended to. She bought flowers for the kitchen window. Pink, this time. Not roses, something wilder, something from a vendor on the street who didn't know the names of what he sold. She put them in the blue ceramic vase we'd received as a wedding gift, and she arranged them with the same precision she brought to fabric, looking at them with her head tilted, adjusting. She restocked the fridge with things she knew he liked, the specific yogurt, the green tea, not the chai he was supposed to drink, but the green tea she teased him about preferring, a certain brand of biscuit. Small purchases, unremarkable, the kind of care that expresses itself through knowing someone well enough to buy what they want before they ask. I watched all of this and did not comment on it. I want to be honest about what watching costs me. I have described the framework, the rules, the logic, the deliberate choosing, and I don't want that to suggest the choosing was without weight. It costs something daily, sometimes something large. The specific form, I would be in the middle of an ordinary moment, washing dishes, reading, sitting with my tea, and a thought would surface with the clarity of something that had been waiting. Not an image, more a knowledge, the simple fact. She is preparing for him. She has bought his tea and washed the sheets, and she has thought about him more today than she has thought about me. That thought had a texture, sharp, specific, the particular sting of asymmetry. I would hold it, not suppress it, not fight it, not perform the equanimity that is only repression in better clothes. I would hold it and feel it and let it move through, which it did always, because feelings do move through if you don't try to resolve them before they're ready. On the other side of the feeling, my wife, at the stove or in the workroom or asleep beside me, choosing this flat, choosing me, the evidence visible in every daily detail. I held both, the grief and the evidence, the cost and the gift. This was part of the framework I had built, part of the second rule. Look and receive what you see as information. Do not turn every observation into a verdict. She was preparing for someone she was glad was coming. This was true. It was also true that she cooked for me when I'd had bad days, refilled my water without being asked, kept a mental inventory of what I was running low on. The care was not divided, it was multiplied. She was not giving from a fixed supply. I had been raised, as most people are, on a zero-sum theory of love. What is given to one person cannot be given to another. The total remains constant. Attention is a resource with limits. I was discovering, slowly, and with some resistance, that this theory did not apply to Saloni. She operated on different principles. Her capacity for care did not have an apparent ceiling. Whether this was a gift or a burden was something I was still working out. I made a point of being home when he arrived. This was new. The previous visits I had been present but peripheral, drifting through the flat, working in the study, occupying myself with the performance of having other things to attend to. A way of not quite participating that had felt like dignity and probably looked like cowardice. This time I was in the kitchen when the buzzer went. I had spent the afternoon making dal from my mother's recipe, the long version, the one that takes 3 hours and cannot be rushed. The kitchen smelled of it, warm and complex, the smell of effort. Saloni let him in, and I heard the hallway sounds. His voice, her voice, the brief, warm exchange of two people who have been looking forward to seeing each other and are calibrating how much of that they're allowed to show. He came to the kitchen. He stopped in the doorway and looked at me in the kitchen, at the pot on the stove, at the scene as a whole, and something recalibrated in his face. A small adjustment, an expectation revised. "Bia," he said, "you cooked." "Sit down," I said. "It's ready." I said it easily, naturally, not performing ease, arriving at it through the weeks of framework building, the rule about staying, the thing I had understood in the dark on the night before this visit, that the discomfort of these moments was survivable, and that surviving them deliberately was different from surviving them by accident. He sat. Saloni appeared from wherever she'd been, and she looked at the two of us, at Piyush sitting at the table and me at the stove, and something passed through her expression. Something I hadn't seen before. Relief, maybe, or the beginning of something that would become relief later when she'd had time to understand it. "Smells like Nagpur," Piyush said. "Your mother's recipe," I said. He looked at me. "You called her?" "For the recipe," I said. He looked at the table. He was quiet for a moment. "Thank you," he said. "I like cooking dal," I said. "Seat." Dinner was different from the previous visits. I was in the room, not simply present in. The conversation moved through all three of us, included all three of us, and I participated not because I was performing a role, but because I was genuinely here. The visit had a different texture because I was different in it, had brought a different version of myself, one that had spent several months practicing presence and was beginning to be actually present. We talked about Piyush's project. A firm in Bengaluru had made overtures about a position, a real one, senior enough to mean something. He was ambivalent. The Delhi connection, the family proximity, the life he had built here. Bengaluru was abstract, a possibility, a version of his future he hadn't decided whether to enter. Saloni listened with the quality I had come to identify as her most powerful, total, physical attention, the kind that makes a person feel heard at a cellular level. She asked questions that opened things rather than closed them. I asked questions too, real ones. Piyush looked at me the third time with an expression I recognized as surprised, then adjusted. After dinner, he washed up without being asked. Saloni made chai and brought 3 cups. We moved to the living room. The lamp was on. Outside, the December city, cool and going dark early. Saloni sat on the couch. Piyush sat on the floor in front of it, back against the couch, legs stretched, the unself-conscious posture of someone very comfortable. I sat in the chair to the side. And we talked for 2 hours. Not carefully, not performing. Just talked about the Bengaluru offer, about Piyush's exams, about a film Saloni had watched without me that she wanted to tell us about a trip I had been meaning to take to see my parents. The conversation moved the way conversations move when no one is managing them, finding its own level, backing up and starting again. At some point, Saloni's hand moved to Piyush's shoulder. Not with announcement, not with the weight of statement, just resting there, the gesture of a woman at ease with where she was and who was near. He didn't shift. He kept talking. I looked at them both in the lamplight. My wife's hand on my brother's shoulder, the ordinary intimacy of it, the way it had settled into the room without asking permission. And I felt, I want to say this accurately, and without romance, I felt something move through me that was not entirely grief. It was complicated and large and had several chambers to it, the way large feelings do. There was the grief, yes, always. There was the sharp edge of it, the specific loneliness of a man watching someone else receive what he wants for himself. But there was also something else.
A kind of seeing.
A clarity about what I was actually looking at, which was two people who cared for each other, whose caring had been allowed to exist, whose existence had not destroyed the room it was in. The room was intact. The lamp was on. The chai was going cold in our cups because we were too absorbed to drink it. The 3 days had their own rhythm. They always did now, the visits, the way things develop their own rhythms when they repeat. Saturday was the park. Saloni had suggested it. The practical solution to 3 people in a flat on a Saturday, the need for air and movement, the city's one gift of green in December. We walked a long circuit and then sat on the grass, and Piyush fell asleep in the winter sun with his arm across his face, and Saloni and I sat beside him and talked without filling every silence. At one point she asked, "Are you okay?" Not the surface version of the question, the other one. "I'm learning something," I said. "I'm not sure I'd call it okay, but I'm not okay." "That's honest," she said. "I'm trying to be," I said. She absorbed this. She looked at the park, the cyclists, the families, a group of old men playing chess on a stone table in the distance. "The blouse is almost done," she said. "The rose silk one?" "Yes." I thought about the sketch, the low back, the straps. "When will you wear it?" I asked. She didn't answer immediately. The pause held something, not calculation exactly, but consideration, the weight of the question. "Soon," she said. "Okay," I said. She looked at me, at my face, at whatever was in it. "You can ask," she said, "if you want to." "I don't think I want to," I said. "Not yet." She nodded slowly, accepting this. We sat in the winter sun. Piyush slept beside us. The city went about its Saturday. I thought about soon and what it contained, the specific charge of a word that signals something coming without naming it. I thought about the sketch, the architectural precision of what she was making, the deliberateness of a woman who had started with fabric and followed it to its necessary form. She had made that thing for herself. She had also, without saying so, made it for this, for a moment that was coming, that she could see already, that she was building toward the way she built everything, with patience and certainty and the complete conviction that the form she was working toward was the right one. I held my wife's hand in the winter park and felt the aliveness of it, the complexity, the ongoing strangeness, the daily cost of being in this specific life with this specific person. And I felt, I can only say it plainly, grateful. Not grateful that the situation was what it was. Not grateful for the grief or the anger or the 4 a.m. wakefulness. Grateful for the realness of it. Grateful to be a person who had been handed something that required him to find out what he actually was, and had found out that he was, at his core, someone who chose to stay. Sunday afternoon, the last hours of the visit. Piyush packed his bag with the efficiency he always packed, decisions already made, nothing left until the last minute. He had accepted, I understood now, that this was the shape of the visits and was choosing to accept it the way I was choosing, the way Saloni was choosing. We were all, in our different ways, choosing. He came to the kitchen at 6. "I should go," he said. "Train's at 9. "Eat something first," Saloni said. "I'll eat on the train." She looked at him with the expression she used when she was overriding someone for their own good. She made him eat. He let her. I watched this small exchange, this ordinary domestic authority, and felt the familiar complexity settle through me, all the feelings occupying their respective spaces. At the door, he hugged her, the embrace I recognized now. Complete, economical, the full weight of what it was without ceremony. He turned to me. "Next month," he said. "Next month," I said. The lift, the closed doors. Saloni and I in the quiet flat. She went to the kitchen. I heard her at the stove. Something small, something for us, the sound of her putting the day to rest through action. I stood in the living room for a moment and looked at the chair where she had sat, the floor where Piyush had sat, the lamplight still on. The room was intact. I turned the lamp off and went to the kitchen. "Chai," she said. "Yes," I said. "Please." She made it without looking up. 2 cups, exactly right, both placed on the counter between us. We stood and drank. That evening after the chai, after the conversation had moved through everything it needed to move through, Saloni brought out the blouse. Not wearing it, the blouse was not yet finished. But she brought the pieces of it from the workroom. The front panel, the back panels with their straps already attached, the silk laid out on the dining table in the lamplight. She laid them out and stood back and looked at them the way she looked at work in progress, assessing, still considering. Piyush looked at the pieces. He looked at them the way someone looks at something they understand to be for them without having been told. He looked at me. I was at the other end of the table, watching both of them.
"The rose one," he said, to Saloni.
"Yes," she said, "nearly done." He looked at the silk again. He reached out and touched the edge of the back panel, one finger, light, and felt the drape of it. "It's extraordinary," he said. She received this the way she received his regard, openly, without deflecting. I watched this exchange and felt the familiar complicated thing, the grief, the edge of it, the ache of watching something I had not been the one to create. And underneath it, something that had been growing since October, a strange, specific pride. She was extraordinary. The things she made were extraordinary. And whatever the cost of knowing her fully, the fullness was real. I would rather have the full, complicated, real thing than the simple, partial version. When it's done, I said, she wears it for me first. They both looked at me. Saloni's expression was, I searched for the word, confirmed, as though something she'd been uncertain about had just been confirmed. I know, Piyush said. Simple, accepting. Good, I said. We stood around the dining table with the unfinished silk between us, the three of us, in the lamplight, in the flat that had become the container of this arrangement, and it was, in its strange way, a kind of peace. Not the absence of difficulty, the presence of something understood. Saloni gathered the pieces carefully back into her arms.
Chai, she said.
I'll make more chai. She went to the kitchen. Piyush looked at me. You're something else, Pia, he said quietly. I'm just paying attention, I said. Finally. He nodded slowly. He understood what I meant. Train's at 9 tomorrow, he said. I know, I said. I'll drive you. He nodded again. We stood in the empty dining room and listened to Seloni move in the kitchen, the sounds of water and warmth, and did not need to say anything else. I drove him to the station the next morning. He sat in the passenger seat with his bag on his lap, and we didn't say much. The city at 7 a.m., still waking, the roads clear, the vendors setting up their stalls, the particular thin light of a December morning. At the station, he got out. He put his bag over his shoulder. He looked at me. "The dowel," he said. "Last night." "What about it?" "You made it," he said. "You were there in the kitchen. You made the dowel." He paused. "I know what that cost." I looked at him. "It costs less than you think," I said, which was true. Less than it would have cost before. Less than it would have cost in October. He held out his hand. I took it. "Diwali," he said. "Diwali," I said. I watched him walk into the station, the morning light making him just a silhouette, then gone. I drove home. Seloni was at the kitchen table with her chai and her sketchbook, the morning just starting. She looked up when I came in. "He made his train," she said. "He made his train," I said. I sat across from her. She pushed the chai pot toward me. The flat around us, our life around us, what we were, the specific shape of it, the one that had no name, continuing. To be continued in Episode 7, The Rose Silk.
Simbolo di copyright Mia.
All rights reserved. That was Episode 6 of My Playful Wife. If this story is staying with you, the next episode is already waiting. Subscribe so you don't miss it. The complete book is on Amazon, and early episodes plus bonus chapters are on my Patreon. Links are in the description.
I'm Mia.
Thank you for listening.